Sawadika.
Ciao, benvenuto. Grazie per essere qui.
Hello, and welcome to the Study Abroad Pod. You certainly wouldn't be the first student to worry about how much studying abroad is going to cost, but after today, you'll have a ton of insider tips on how to manage your expenses and make a term abroad just as affordable as one at home. The alumni featured in this episode have a lot of ideas, so don't be afraid to press pause and jot down some notes. They'll cover everything from setting a budget to writing good scholarship essays, all to get the most out of your overseas adventure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Study Abroad Pod. My name is Danny, and I'm here with Sophia.
Hi, everybody.
And today we're going to be spilling the secrets on how to spend less and travel more while you are abroad. Sophia and I both went to Italy. I went to Reggio Emilia.
And I went to Verona.
So get your notepad out. It's going to be a good one.
So money can be a little bit of a sensitive subject. I'm a first-generation college student, and I didn't expect an opportunity like this to be available to me. But then through different preparation tactics, I was able to go abroad and have an amazing time that I would do all over again. I'm great with money. I love a budget. I love organization. And while we aren't financial experts, we do have a little bit of insight from us and other alumni to share with you about how to save some money while you're abroad.
Today, we really want to debunk the misconception that study abroad has to break the bank. That is not the case at all. Sophie and I put together our top notes and tips for you to budget and save money before you go abroad. So let's start.
You can pack all of the things you want, but what do you really need? You don't need toothpaste. You can get that at your host city. Save the room in your suitcase for what you actually need. Medications, important aspects that you can't really get while you're abroad, contacts. The things that you really cannot live without, that's our first secret. It's important to be mindful, especially when you're going to your host city. Luggage can be very expensive and an additional cost that can add up quick. Even though it seems so obvious, doing your research is so essential and it's going to set you up for success. You're going to learn more about what you need, your program site, the city, everything.
If they weigh your luggage at the airport and it's too heavy, we cannot be doing those extra fees today. Our next category is making a budget and sticking to it. It is so easy to have the heart eyes when you're abroad and buy all the gelato and clothes and be really not financially conscious.
Those hard eyes will get you, especially for the gelato. It's important to understand your budget, especially the base of your budget that you're going to be spending throughout your time abroad. Like for me, in Verona, my housing situation was I lived in an apartment. I paid for the apartment, I had a city tax, and then I also had utilities to pay for. And you have to budget for the city that you're going to. You know, Verona, my host city, is a smaller city in Italy, and it's going to be less expensive than it is in Milan, Italy. So when I was planning out my budget ideas and everything, I would start off with that. I planned it through just a regular notes app that I had used for school, tracking it all on my iPad. And you don't have to track your expenses just through this. You can do it through an Excel sheet, another app, your bank, whichever way works for you. But it's really important to know what you're spending and know where it's going.
So for the week, I would take out like 100 euros and I gave myself that guidance to say, I'm not going to spend over 100 euros this week. And it really helped me hold myself accountable. That way I could afford to do other things I wanted to do later on.
I also found that helped me as well because I like to shop. I'm a very good shopper. I could be a personal shopper one day, honestly. But that budget is important and a budget is a budget. So the cash aspect, having only cash, definitely saved my budget a lot of money. But also on top of that, pre-departure, I had researched different credit cards that would work for me going abroad. It was really important for me to get a credit card that didn't have any international fees, that also gave me some rewards and points, so I would get some cash back offers. Not everybody in my program had credit cards, but those people who did and had the credit cards without international fees, if we went out to dinner, they would put their card down and then we would give them money. So then we could all save a little bit of money on those transaction fees.
Don't do what I did. I did no research before going abroad. It was my first time ever out of the country. And I only had my debit card. And on every single transaction, my bank would charge me like 1% of every single transaction. And those fees built up so quick. And I wasted so much money on those fees. So definitely do your research ahead of time, like Sophia.
So branching out on your budget, it's important to remember there are some costs that are overlooked. One being a phone plan. Phone plans can be really, really expensive. And if your phone's not unlocked by your carrier, which means it's totally paid off, you can't do a SIM card when you are abroad in another country. So it's important to do some research about your host city and what they offer through different phone carriers to find what fits you best, or to speak with your own phone provider to see their different plans and what fits best for you there.
My best friend, while we're abroad, she didn't pay off her phone. And so she was like crying to me, I don't know what to do. And she did end up paying off her phone. That way she could get the Italian SIM card. And it was worth it, let me tell you. I did the Italian phone plan when I was abroad, and our on-site staff like took us there, and it was just so helpful because they were speaking Italian and I did not know what they were saying. But it ended up only being around like 30 euro to start it, and then 20 euro each month to pay that, which was very nice for like unlimited data.
Another thing that you can do to save on that data aspect, you can download offline maps on Google and on Apple, so you can be prepared and ready to go and know the area that you're going to when you're traveling, or even within your host city.
It's definitely important to have just a reliable phone and data and maps, especially if you get lost, because you just never know and want to be as prepared as possible.
Another thing that could be overlooked is having a little bit of that cushion fund. If you lose your wallet or if travel plans don't go as expected. Sometimes there's strikes in Italy or all around Europe or all around the world, and you're not going to make your plane, you're not going to make your bus or train. So you're stuck. You don't have a ticket. I need a new one. How am I going to get to the place? By instilling this from the get-go, you're preparing yourself for success just in case if something like this did happen. But if not, then when you get back, you have an extra however much money you want to have in there to spend.
Girl math. I love it. Our next section is all about food. We called it Leave No Crumbs, Staying In Instead of Spending Out. The food, the food, the food. That is the reason why we all know you're going abroad. At least that's why I went to Italy. And so we're going to talk about food. I mean, hey, even in the US, that's probably my biggest expense every month is how much money I spend on food. Before you eat out at your first restaurant abroad, definitely look up the restaurant etiquette in your host country. For example, I went to Italy and I was shocked that tipping is not a thing when you eat out. We know a lot about tipping culture here in the US, but in Italy, they actually pay their servers a living wage. So tips are not required. Definitely don't waste your money and do not be unnecessarily tipping if that isn't the culture in your host country.
I do want to note in a lot of Italian restaurants, there's going to be a cover charge. So that is going to be kind of considered your tip. It's normally like a €2 charge or somewhere around there. And that's going to cover the costs of plating, silverware, all that jazz.
And be prepared for the unexpected costs. Like water, for example, is not free in most of Europe. You do have to pay for water. So keeping that in mind before you eat out. To budget effectively, as we know, just as in your life in the US, you cannot be eating out every night if you want to save money. We definitely recommend grocery shopping. That is how I saved a lot of money while abroad. I would grocery shop and eat in during the week. That way I could eat out on the weekends with my friends.
For me, I had 3 other roommates, so there were 4 of us. So we would all go grocery shopping together. We would get our own individual food, but we would go in on items such as olive oil, seasonings, bread, milk, and coffee as well. So we had a shared cost a little bit because we wouldn't all need to finish that all in one ourselves.
Definitely. The little things like this may sound silly, but they really add up. For example, you could also, whether it's your roommates or those in your host city, you can also split things like toilet paper, dish soap. You could definitely save up on costs like that.
Yeah, I remember when we first landed, we had gone to our program housing site and we were all like, what's next? Food. We need to eat dinner. And we all looked at each other, eyes huge, because none of us really knew Italian. We knew the basic ciao, but that's about it. And we're like, how are we going to last in a grocery store? Thankfully, one was right around the block from us and we were able to go, but having each other to lean on definitely helped right over there.
Definitely. And if you live alone or don't have roommates, definitely connect with your neighbors or other students that are in your host city. Also, a lot of restaurants and grocery stores and markets might require you to use cash instead of using your card. So, a lot of times you'll have to find yourself going to an ATM and pulling out local currency from US dollars. It's really important to pay attention to the exchange rates. For example, I pulled out euros in an airport one time and I put in like $50 and got like 20 euros versus if I did it at a local ATM like near my apartment, it would have been way better exchange rate. So definitely pay attention. And you can even Google the current exchange rate and see how that differs for the certain ATM that you're at.
Yeah, like Danny said, the current exchange rate. Exchange rates fluctuate depending on the economy. So one day they can be high, one day they can be much lower. So just keep an eye out on that and it'll be the best situation for you. All right, so now we're going to push into some weekend travel.
And we know you want to build that Instagram feed. Once you go abroad, you want to visit all the top cities on your destination. So it's a great to research resources of how to make that as cheap as possible. Whenever my friends and I did weekend trips while we were abroad, we made it as cost effective as possible, doing budget airlines. We were looking on websites like Rome to Rio, Skyscanner, other websites, Google Flights that really compared the best and most affordable options. We all kind of went in big groups. And so we definitely saved money by staying in hostels or splitting the cost of a rental to really save on those things. Because, I mean, when you're traveling to a new city on the weekend, you won't necessarily be at the place that you're staying. You'll be exploring the city. Seriously, the best memories. So you definitely don't need to go bougie on that.
Absolutely. And for me, I didn't plan any trips really ahead of time besides one concert, which was so awesome. I had already had that allotted in my budget. And then once I got to Verona and I got to meet my wonderful, wonderful friends, then we were able to plan from there and I could see what I could afford and what I couldn't. I do want to note as well, concert tickets are cheaper in Europe and probably all sides of the world besides the United States. So when it comes to travel, do some research before you go, especially in that aspect.
Definitely. And do not have FOMO. Travel is not necessary to have the best time abroad. Some of my favorite weekends and memories abroad were ones that we spent at home, just getting to know each other. It's so important to get to know the city that you're living in as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Danny on that. I think I really didn't appreciate my host city enough. The time will go by fast. Just make sure you're fulfilling what you want out of your study abroad instead of going with what your friends want.
When I was in my host city, I didn't know that there was a bus pass. I was paying for like individual transactions every time versus if I got the bus pass, especially with the student discount, I could have saved a lot of money. Like I said, I didn't do any research going ahead, which I don't recommend. That's why you're watching this podcast. I'm proud of you. You're already doing way better than I did.
Those little fees will add up and it'll add up to more than what you need to be spending. In the case of Verona, for me, a 3-month bus pass for a student was $75. But if you were to be taking the bus every day and doing individual tickets or not being so honest and hopping on without a ticket, if you were to get caught, that fee right there is 50 euros. So you're going to save money right off the bat from just buying the transportation pass in the first place. And it's much easier on you in the end.
The last topic we're covering, which you're probably wondering why we haven't talked about it yet, is scholarships and financial aid. I know that when I was applying to scholarships, it was very overwhelming and can be just very intimidating to submit scholarship essays. I applied to about every single scholarship possible. I was in on those applications, which you definitely should be too. I received the Gilman Scholarship, some first gen scholarships, some USAC scholarships, and then was able to apply to some at my university. And it made the biggest difference. I was able to pay for my entire study abroad experience through my financial aid scholarships. Sophia, did you earn any scholarships?
No, but I did use my financial aid. So I went and spoke with my advisor to see my different options, if study abroad was even possible for me in my degree path. And lucky enough, it was. And I was able to go into the office and speak with everybody and get a different perspective. And Financial aid is definitely very helpful. And while it can't be used on every program, it is able to be used on a majority of the programs, which is great. I do wish that I applied to some more scholarships and also maybe wrote a little bit better, but the tips that are going to be listed next, they'll help you out on that.
Definitely. So we are going to first hear from Ricardo Estrada-Davila, who was interviewed by our alumni content creator, Colette Horton.
Ricardo, I know that you were awarded multiple scholarships. Could you talk to us a little bit about that process? And do you have any tips for students who are writing scholarships now?
I received the Gilman Scholarship. I received the
Okay.
USAC First Generation Scholarship, and I received a grant here at Fresno State. So I received those
Wow.
3 scholarships. And the Fresno State grant in particular was really nice because it paid fully for tuition. So I no longer had to worry about anything. It was great. It was like I got paid to go to Thailand. I do have some tips though, because if I could go back, I might change a few things. Because I started that process with 1 month of crunch time, which,
Ooh.
as you can imagine, means I don't have any free time. I no longer have a social life because I'm working on those scholarships. I for sure looked up tips on how to write the papers as well online. There's a lot of good, there's valuable like scholarship essay sort of recommendations. And even the Gilman website itself has some recommendations for you, so like on how to write your paper. But for me, I wrote about my hardships. That is true. I wrote about a couple of things in my life that impacted my ability to study abroad in the past. But I always made sure to tie it into my strengths and how I overcame that, how I used those hardships to overcome that. And so showing like that resilience and like that independence through study abroad, that's something I was pretty proud of in my papers. And that's something I've been told from the people I've had review my papers is a really valuable thing. For example, let's say, you're a first generation student, so you have to learn how to navigate college all on your own, like I had to do. I wrote about that and how it gave me the ability to be more independent, to critically think and analyze these situations. And then I would transition that to how I would plan to use that studying abroad to further my goals. I think that's a really strong way to write your papers as well. So, research, because that's what gave me those ideas to write. Having people look it over. One final thing I'd like to say, there's always a writing center on campus, unless it's being redecorated or something. And they're paid to help you with these things. They're paid to, go over your paper with you, review it, help you like write it. And I think that's something powerful that a lot of people tend to forget we have, because it's part of, your student tuition funds. That's what it goes towards, those writing centers. So, you shouldn't feel bad about going there, for help to get reviewed, because, it's also their job.
Wow, Ricardo summed that up really, really well. When I was writing my scholarship essays, it just was so much easier to speak about the exact reasons why I was studying abroad, and being vulnerable in that way really went a long way and made it just more organic for scholarship essay writing.
And like Ricardo said, using those online resources, in-person resources, that is so, so pivotal. And you already pay for it in your college tuition if you're on a campus, or like the Gilman website, that's free for you to use. Use it. Like, it's a shame when people aren't using the resources that they have to them. And that's me, because I'm not confident in my writing, but I didn't go out and have somebody check it. Maybe if I did, I could have gotten a scholarship. Who knows?
Recently, Colette did another interview during Pride Month with Ryder Hankins, another USAC Italy alumni. Go Italy!
He works at UNLV and is actually a part of the scholarship committee, so he sees and knows all about this stuff. Let's hear from Ryder now.
I found it very difficult when I first started. I didn't think that I could study abroad. I thought that it was an impossibility, but I tried. I got to see what resources were available to me. I wanted that to be shared with everyone else, because if I can do it, you can too.
Why did you think it was an impossibility? I had the same thought as a fellow independent student.
Well, because at first I didn't know how I was going to pay for school in America. And looking at studying abroad, looking at the cost, and looking at all that you had to do to set up for it, at once it all looks so daunting. But the way USAC broke it up, and honestly, the way that I broke it up with myself, is everything is just a piece. And if I can get this one piece done, then I'm one step closer. I don't need to get 100% of it done, but I can get 5% of it done today. And that mindset kind of changed the way that I not only viewed like studying abroad, but viewed daunting tasks. And that's something that I wanted to share, especially because I think the stereotype of studying abroad is that your parents pay for it if possible, and not knocking people who can. That is an awesome resource for you, but it's available for everyone. And I wanted everyone to have that.
You mentioned earlier that you're on the scholarship committee, and I mean, obviously that makes you the best person to ask about scholarship tips.
I think trying to put on paper the benefits of going abroad is asking a lot, but I think one of the biggest things that you need to focus on is how is this experience, this unique experience, going to benefit me? You have to dig deeper because, yes, studying abroad, going out of the country, seeing another culture, that will benefit you. But how will studying abroad in Lyon, France, or Viterbo, Italy, or Costa Rica, or London, or Australia, the Gold Coast, how did those specific locations help you both personally and professionally? I think a lot of people lean on one side or lean on the other about, this is going to help me because I'll be able to create connections in the business world and like further my business or further my experience and expand my perspective. That's great, but how is that helping you personally? How is that going to help you grow? I think studying abroad is healthy and important to grow not just your academics or not help your career, but also your soul. And I think that's what you need to capture on paper. I think you also have to find a way for it to stand out, because you have to remind yourself that when you're writing these scholarship essays, every single person is studying abroad. You have to explain what makes you the right candidate for those, because they want to invest in someone who is going to use that money to grow all aspects of their life. I mean, when you come back, they want to see what that experience is doing for you and how you can share that with others. One of the things is like, talking on podcasts like this, sharing your experience. The way that I learned how to cook al dente pasta, and where the only oil in my kitchen now is olive oil, even when it doesn't make sense. And our slow learning to become a sommelier, and how professionally, my understanding of as a marketing student, how, writing in one language or in one way might change that perspective or change the intent of what you're saying in another language. So find ways to build even the smallest things into your experience. Don't be afraid to be unique. Don't be afraid to go deep. And I think at the very least, be yourself. Explain the real reasons why you're studying abroad. And I think that if you're worried that you only have one reason to study abroad, I think that it's completely fine to invent and find more reasons. So if you feel like you are only wanting to go to a certain place because you have one big reason, that reason's fine. But also start looking into the city, because the places you travel to or the places you will study abroad, you will not even touch the tip of the iceberg.
Another thing that's good to acknowledge is that a good scholarship essay is typically not written in a day. And maybe, like you said, if you have just the one idea, that's okay. Don't expect yourself to have it all figured out in one go. It's okay to
Exactly.
start with an idea, go do some research and come back, but you can't do that without a little prep and planning.
Exactly. I think at the very least, have a second pair of eyes look at it, because there have been times where I'm like, this sounds amazing. And then I show my boss and he's like, hey, what if we did it this way? And I'm like, you know what? This is even better. I didn't think I could make it even better. And I think, having a second pair of eyes helps you to see it in a new light. So take it a little bit more seriously and put some time into it, because an essay written in 3 days is miles ahead, I believe, than an essay written in 45 minutes.
Oof, I feel called out by that. 3 days is miles ahead of an essay that's written in 45 minutes. It's so hard not to procrastinate.
Okay, but I'm like one of the most Virgos, and I cannot help but write an essay so late. So, I mean, a flaw that I realized and I should probably fix, but doesn't always happen. But Ryder's definitely right. Having that preparation and time to fix it up make it Gorgina, do all that you need to do to get that scholarship. You got this.
Didn't Ricardo say that his entire tuition was covered as well? That is incredible.
I think it's awesome that both Ryder and Ricardo got these opportunities. And it just makes me so proud for them. I don't know them, but college is hard. Studying abroad is hard. It's not something that you do every day, but to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable like they were, and to get some aid in towards it, that's a really awesome opportunity. And I'm very proud that they were both able to do that for themselves. I really do hope that at the end of the day, everybody's able to get scholarships and get some aid in going abroad, because it is such a great time.
Definitely.
Wow, we covered a lot, but we covered a lot of good information.
We are manifesting scholarships for each one of you watching. We know that you are the prepared student watching this. Not every student is watching this, so you should feel already proud. You're already ahead of the game already, and USAC is here to really support you and make study abroad accessible for your situation. So definitely reach out to them if you need anything.
We just want to say thank you so much again for listening to us and hanging out with us for this little bit of time. It was a pleasure for us to share our tips and tricks with you. Good luck on budgeting and getting to your study abroad program. We wish you all the best.
Thank you for listening to the Study Abroad Pod, a podcast brought to you by the University Studies Abroad Consortium. Please listen, subscribe, and review us on Buzzsprout or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow USAC on all of your favorite social media channels at Study Abroad USAC. And if you have an idea for a future episode or want to learn more about study abroad, you can email us at studyabroad@usac.edu.